Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles, McLennan. We got a big hour here. Gerry's percentages in about a half an hour. Gerry, as my understanding, is fired up. He's ready to go. He's through the dog days, of March. We're almost into April, man. We're almost into April. By the end of the weekend, it is go time. And you know what that means, right? The weather's turning. The Masters is right around the corner. Stanley Cup playoffs. You got baseball back, NBA playoffs. I love it. And
you're one or the other. It's this time of year you love, or it's in the fall. So it's like it's one of the two greatest parts of the year. And you're on the fence of which one you think is better. Start of the NHL season, the NFL season, or right now, which is there's a lot going on.
Yeah, they're really, whichever one I'm in is the one I like the most.
But you got to pick one. What is it? Because for me, it's now. Yeah,
it's probably now because the weather's changing up here too. Like that factors in, right? Like it's going to be nice weather, getting outside more. We could play golf, play tennis outdoors, do whatever you're going to do. And the playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, you can't beat. Major golf, the Masters, you can't beat. Right. But I love football, man. I love the NFL. Like, we didn't get into it yesterday. The NFL announcing they're playing 2 games on Christmas Day, even though it falls on a Wednesday yesterday. And I'd love to hear from Adam Silver. Right. Because the NBA's been completely booted off Christmas Day in terms of it being their day. They own that. Like, they created that. That was their day. Their season unofficially began. And now the NFL's like, actually, we own that.
We dipped their toe. They dipped their toe in last year, and they said, you know what? We kind of like that. Now we're going to keep doing it, and we're going to screw it.
It'll never go back because even if it's on a Tuesday, which I believe it will be next year, they'll just have those teams play, the following Monday or so. They'll make the schedule work. They'll never not play on Christmas.
How many games is the NFL putting on Christmas Day this year?
It's 2 games.
Within 3 years, it'll be somehow 4 games. It'll be one starting on the East Coast at 11 a.m., and they'll run it right through, and they'll have a late game. Like, it'll be outrageous. They'll
own the whole day.
Dummy everything.
They already do. Like, because even if the games start, it'll be a 4 o'clock and 8:30 game or whatever, maybe 3 and 6, 3 and 6:30. The pregame shows will start at 11 a.m., noon. Yeah. Those will do bigger ratings than anything the NBA is going to put up. The NBA is completely pushed aside. That doesn't mean they won't have ratings. There aren't a lot of NBA fans that will want to watch. They promote it very, very well. They have their stars playing on it. It's always the Lakers and the Warriors and the champs and all that kind of stuff. But you just cannot – you can't compete with the NFL. No. The NFL wants it. The NFL will take it. And all you can do is compete for second place. That's it. And they're all the partners are in it together, right? It's all ESPN and NBC and Fox, like they all overlap with these other leagues for the most part. Like ESPN's the home of the NBA, NFL games, NHL games, baseball, they got everything. And yet if you offer up an NFL game, they will take it because you have to. The ratings speak for themselves. Like a game on Christmas will do 3, 4, 5 times what game 1 of the NBA Finals will do. So
I agree.
Pretty simple. Do the math.
It's all cash. That's what it is. Do the math. It's all about cash. Cash is king, and they're just going to continue to swallow up days. Wait until they go to Europe. Do you believe they're going to go to Europe?
Well, they're going to Brazil this year, right? They're starting the season in Brazil.
No, I mean permanently.
Like when does this lead to franchises there?
I would think in the next, 10, 15, 20 years, I wouldn't be surprised. At all? I mean, I
think 10 years. I think it's coming. I think it's coming quick. And, they've gone over there, and yes, people have enjoyed it, but having a team, where would it be? London?
Yeah, London's like the epicenter of the NFL in Europe. And I think what's likely is they would set up a division over there. So they'd set up probably 4 teams right away, and probably 2 in London, like 1 in Frankfurt or Berlin or something. They play generally in Germany a lot. And then, I don't know, 1 in Paris. I don't know what other kind of hotbeds they have over there. London always does really well. Right. Maybe they put 4 teams in London. Like, I doubt it, but it's possible,
Well, surrounding area, Manchester and places like that, right? Like, Nottingham. Like, I played during the lockout, I played in England, that English, whatever, British National League or whatever. It was gritty. Like it was pretty cool.
Oh,
I really enjoyed it.
It's a different world over there, but you only gotta market 8 home games, 9 home games. That's another big part of it. Like it's just such a catch and release league. There's not that many games.
Yeah.
Where baseball is obviously the polar opposite of that, and it gets started unofficially tomorrow. I guess technically we've had a couple of games that have counted in the standings, but the real stuff really begins tomorrow, and certainly for the Blue Jays, they start on the road. And to chat about it, we're joined now by longtime ESPN analyst, reporter, insider. He's done it all here. Is Tim Kurkjian joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. How you doing, Tim?
I'm well, fellas. How are you?
We're doing very well. I know you obviously are a baseball historian. You love the sport. We all love the sport. What's running through your mind? How do you feel about once we finally get through the grind of spring training and the real stuff beginning tomorrow?
Yeah, it's my 44th opening day coming up, and I love spring training, but at some point we have to play games that count because everything changes when the games actually matter. I can tell you 1,000 stories about guys who couldn't wait for spring training to end so the real season can start, and that starts tomorrow. And I don't care how corny this sounds, I'm 67 years old, and I can't wait for baseball to start tomorrow.
That's awesome, Tim. We were referencing the Blue Jays and kind of their plan B after Ohtani didn't work out. What would you say executives or different baseball people outside of the Jays organization are viewing them right now heading into the season?
Well, I think they're kind of a confusing team. I think if you look at their starting pitching, that, of course, is with a healthy Kevin Gausman, they can pitch with almost anyone in their rotation, which makes them a dangerous team. And they have a pretty good bullpen, assuming the closer is healthy, and he's not healthy right now. My big concern, and from what I've heard around the league, is can the Blue Jays score enough runs to win the division, make the playoffs, because they were not a good offensive team last year, as we know, and maybe we've just overrated them offensively. They just didn't have that big-time cleanup guy to hit behind Vladdy last year, and it showed in his production and their production, and I just don't know if they did enough to make them enough of an offensive team to win a really stout division.
What is your take on, or what is your sense of where Manoah is at? It has been a bizarre year and a bit for him. Like he threw once, he started one game, it was miserable, and now it just seems to be bizarre and nobody knows what's going on. What's your sense of where Manoah's at, Tim?
Well, I am really confused too, because I got to know him pretty well during, a couple years ago when he was so good and so dominant. And I know it's the hardest game in the world to play, and people find it and lose it real quickly, but it's amazing how far he has fallen and how quickly he has fallen, and he hasn't been able to get up yet. Now, I'm by no means giving up on him, but yes, he hasn't pitched well, and he hasn't been healthy, and he's got to get both of those back together if he's going to help this team. Just imagine if he can find anything close to 2 years ago and you add him to that rotation. But right now, how can you count on that? I don't think you can.
No, I don't think you can. I don't think they are. I think it was imperative that he showed up in the spring and performed well for him to have a chance to probably wrap out the rotation, let alone get back to the top of it. I mean, he had the ball opening day this time last year for obvious reasons, and it was just a catastrophic season and then a catastrophic spring due to injury, and he's going to start the year likely on the IL. And I'm curious, Tim, if you feel like it's to a point where, is it a bonus if you see him at all? Do we start talking as a bullpen option? Is that even possible? Like, how would you look into the future and see Alek Manoah's role in all this moving forward?
Well, I wouldn't think bullpen yet. I would give him one more chance to figure this out. And as you guys said, return to the rotation as the number 5 starter and work his way back in. But at some point, if that doesn't work and he's not throwing strikes, because that was the biggest change, is how good his command was 2 years ago and how bad it was last year. If he can't refine that, then they're going to have to try something else. Maybe bullpen is next after that. But when you have a frontline starting pitcher, which he was 2 years ago, you got to give him one more shot to find that. Then you go to the bullpen.
Tim, I know you mentioned the Blue Jays are a confusing team and maybe overrated offensively, but just from the outside, because we talk about him a lot, what is Vladdy Jr.'s, I guess, peak? What is his upside? We saw it in his first year, but what is he as a player in your opinion and from the outside in the baseball world? Because I think we all think he's got star status or can be a superstar, but he hasn't achieved that yet consistently.
Right. He had one superstar season, and the rest have been pretty darn good. So maybe he's not going to be a great hitter like we thought he was going to be. Maybe he's just going to be a really good player overall for a long time. And let's not forget, we all know this, last year he was basically the youngest guy on the team. And to repeat, he didn't have much help behind him in the order. So we have to give him another chance to find that beautiful swing of his. And I think he needs a little bit more help, and I think he will find it. But are we going to see MVP caliber years, 3 of the next 4? Maybe not.
With Tim Kurkjian, well, and it sounds like what they're going to do to start the year is actually hit him second and move Bichette to third, which speaks to what you're saying about not having a cleanup hitter, and that will be played by Justin Turner at least to begin the year. But there's, I guess, an element of protection where it'll go Springer into Vladdy into Bo, and it's an interesting timeline here, I guess, window for the Jays where Bo and Vladdy, they have team control for the next 2 years. Mark Shapiro's been here for a decade. Mark's done a lot of heavy lifting, right? Like he completely turned over Dunedin, made that a state-of-the-art facility that the current players really benefit from, and I think they really use to try to bring free agents in. And they've pumped hundreds of millions of dollars into the renovations up at the Rogers Center, which, again, Shapiro had his fingerprints all over, as you're aware, Tim. But now those jobs are done. Like the renos are done, Dunedin's done. Vladdy and Bo have 2 years left. When you think of Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, who have been here every year together outside of that first year in 2015 when Anthopoulos was still here, like what kind of pressure do you think is on those two to really push this team over the top, if not this year, certainly in the next 2?
Right. Well, the guys you're talking about have done a great job rebuilding the organization. It is a first-class organization. But now they got to win on the field, and it hasn't happened yet. The last 2 years have been really disappointing in the postseason. I don't think the window's closed by any means, but they got to get this thing going, and they got to get it going now. And I'm just a little bit surprised that they weren't more engaged in the offseason bringing in frontline players. Okay, they tried to get Ohtani. I think they came relatively close. But if you don't get him, you got to go get Cody Bellinger. You got to go get some offense, some production for that outfield, and they didn't do that, and that still surprises me.
So Ohtani, as we know, is an LA Dodger, and the news from Shohei when they were in South Korea, his interpreter, the reaction to it, his statement a couple of days ago. As you've mentioned, Tim, you've been covering this game for 4 decades. How do you put this into perspective in terms of the introduction, not to the market because he's been there, but the introduction to the Dodgers, the expectations, the contract, and now this story, scandal, whatever it's going to be in the end, hanging over Ohtani? Does this last a week, 2 weeks, a month, the rest of his career in L.A.? Where do you see the Ohtani story going?
Well, it's certainly not going away in a week or a month. At least I don't think so. And this is one of the most confusing, confounding stories that I've ever seen. I mean, given how big a star this guy is, and signing for the money that he signed for, and then getting involved in a contract situation a situation like this. I'm not sure I've seen a stranger story than this, and I'm sure I haven't seen a story that switched gears as quickly as this one did. Here's what happened, and then less than 24 hours later, we get a completely different story. This is not going away, but and maybe I'm the most naive guy in the world, but I listened to him speak the other day, and I found him at least somewhat convincing. I thought he did, I'm not sure it was a good job, but I thought he was going to read from some canned, press release. I think he actually spoke to people, and there was some emotion there. There was some anger there. There was some real emotion there, and I did not expect that. So we'll see where this goes, but it's not going to end in a week or a month.
The emotion is great and everything, addressing people, Tim, but it's just the idea and the concept of not the person getting access to those types of funds or however this transaction went down. I know people that have gambled, no gamblers, bookies, etc., and they're just like, that just doesn't happen. So it's bizarre in that matter, where it's like, how is a guy getting into someone's account and shipping out that kind of money? That's crazy stuff.
Yeah, and again, that's why we needed questions answered at that press conference, and we didn't get those answers. And we haven't gotten any answers since. That's the real confusing part of this is we have 100 questions and very few answers. We got a little clarity when Ohtani came out and said this is a complete lie. I didn't expect to get that. However, we need way more than this. On the one side, it seems inconceivable that he could not know that kind of money was being taken out of his account. And yet, given just how some of these players just trust others so much, and all this guy really cares about is being the greatest baseball player of all time, not, buying a house or getting a huge contract or doing anything. He left it all up to his interpreter, and clearly that did not go well. But again, we need about 100 questions answered before we're going to get to the bottom of this.
With Tim Kurkjian, and of course that's the Dodgers in LA. The other coast, that the team that takes up the most oxygen would be the Yankees, and we're certainly familiar with that up here in Toronto. And the Jays are going to see them a ton this year. And I'm certain the main story all spring, of course, has been Gerrit Cole. And I read this morning, he may start the year on the 60-day IL. Like, how do the Yankees survive if Cole's going to be out for months?
Well, I think they're going to score 200 runs more than they did last year. And that's assuming Aaron Judge plays 150 games, DJ LeMahieu comes back, with Alex Verdugo, and of course, with Juan Soto in the middle of that order. I think they're going to be way, way better than they were. And I think they can slug their way into contention. But Gerrit Cole, for me, is the best pitcher in the game. He's unbelievably durable, and I don't know if there's another starter in their rotation that you can look at and say, I totally trust that guy in all situations. That's the problem with the Yankees now. Now, if Cole is only out for 2 months, I think the Yankees can tread water and still make the playoffs, but we cannot underestimate how big a loss this is for them.
Yeah, and the Jays will be battling close with them, close with Tampa. It does seem like there's consensus, Tim, and I'm curious how you feel about this, the idea that Baltimore is going to win the AL East and the Red Sox are going to definitely be fifth. Do you see it that way? Is there one in particular you're more bullish on?
I am very confused by the American League East because there are so many teams. I think the only thing I know for relative certainty is the Red Sox are coming in last. All the other 4 teams could all make the playoffs, but somebody's going to get left out, and we can't forget nationally, American League West has 3 pretty darn good teams, so maybe only 2 teams out of the East make the playoffs, and that's the fascinating part. How much have the Rays lost? Can the Jays score enough runs? How can the Yankees deal without Gerrit Cole? The only thing that I think I know for sure is the Orioles are going to make the playoffs, but they're not going to win 101 games, and I don't think they're guaranteed to win the division as some people have predicted.
Well, we'll start finding out tomorrow, the beginning of a long 162-game marathon. It's going to be a blast. Enjoy it like you always do, Tim. Thank you so much for doing this.
Okay, guys. See ya.
Tim Kurkjian of ESPN. Yeah, that is more or less the consensus. Like, Baltimore's going to win the division. The Red Sox are a disaster. They'll finish 5th. And Jays, Yankees, Rays battle it out. Yeah.
You know who I can't wait to watch just whiffing on balls and be a disaster and injured is Giancarlo Stanton. At the end of last year, that dude was out of his mind at the plate.
Oh,
Forrest Gump. He was. Remember, he was like the slowest runner.
Yes. They were clocking him.
In the majors.
Remember, they were clocking him? Like, how many times he got, like, thrown out at first is one thing, but he'd come around, he'd be on second base, and the ball would find the gap, and the third base coach would be like, I guess I got to send this guy. And it would be
Dude, I think Brian Cashman called him out.
Third.
I think he had a comment about him heading into spring training or something. It was maybe after the season, but he's like, this guy's always – he made a comment about Stanton, and I don't think Stanton liked it very much.
Well, there's nothing they can do. It's a fully guaranteed contract. They took it on $300 million. Stanton's not going anywhere, right? He's not going anywhere. And Boone's got to deal with it. Whoever else is down there is going to have to deal with it because Stanton's going to be there. He's probably only going to play like 70 games, but that's why Soto's here. Or Soto's there. It's Soto, Judge. You mentioned LeMahieu. Verdugo's there, which is kind of compelling coming over from Boston.
Is there any chance this guy has a season?
Stanton? I don't see it, man. I mean, he's going to – when he's healthy and he's connecting, he'll get hot. He'll hit some home runs just naturally. He's so powerful. He's such a beast. He still has hand-eye, but he's just so injury-prone. He cannot play anywhere in the field. He has to DH. He can't run. It's basically home run or strikeout, right? It's either he's going to slug or he's going to strike out. Like, that's pretty much it with Stanton. And – I don't know where he's going to hit in the lineup. I don't know how available he'll be. But Cole being out, for a couple of months is really substantial stuff, man. Like that is a beast who's up for the Cy Young every single year.
Automatic for the Yankees. Like if they were in a slump, he'd go in there and win them a game. If they were winning, he would keep it going. And that's kind of the ideal role of your ace is just to go in there and it's automatic win night.
Exactly. And that's not available to them for the foreseeable
And
future.
by the way, that's 7 at least. And if you pull him after 7, he's pissed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. You can. I know a lot of people hate on him. I understand why up here. But you got to give credit where it's due. That guy is an absolute horse.
Unreal.
Wow.
Absolute
wasn't that
horse.
long ago that Manoah was chirping him, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, how'd that work out? I mean, that's the thing. Like, Manoah's got a lot at stake here. He's got to battle his way back. And the nature of young stud pitchers, man, they come and go. It was announced today. Nate Pearson made the team in the bullpen. 3 years ago, that was the Manoah. That was the guy. He's going to make the team and be a stud. He's going to be an ace. Now he's happy to break camp as a bullpen arm, not closing, just as an arm out of the bullpen.
But Hayes, I mentioned some honesty regarding Manoah. I think it would be better for Manoah if the organization or Ross or Mark came out and said, this guy needs to figure it out on his own, because if he doesn't figure it out, he's going to be pitching somewhere else because we got to move on from him. So it's all on him, and we're going to give him a certain time frame because this is what's up, and it's on him to figure it out. Like, just get it out there. Like, take the Band-Aid off and just say, this is what it is.
Stop asking us. He's
not
making the team right now.
Yeah. And I think for the best, it's the best for everyone, the media, the fans, and I actually believe it would be best for Manoah, just to have it put on him. Instead of dancing around all this nonsense, it's this and that, and I don't know, I got to get – it's garbage. Like, just put it out there. This guy's got a timeline where he's got to come back and prove he's a major league pitcher, or who knows, we're going to make a decision on what to do with him after that. It's pretty simple, man.
Do you think they're babying him to try and build the asset up so you can move him for something? Is that possible,
Noodles,
too?
how are you going to build him up if he's not even on a mound?
I don't even know what you can get for him right now.
I understand that, but there is somebody out there guaranteed that believes he's a project.
If he walks, Noodles, it's probably going to be for pennies on the dollar, where it's like you're handing him over to somebody and you say, good luck with that.
Yeah, maybe it is a mercy, like, hey, we're going to give you a different change of scenery just for your career, peace of mind, all of that. But you got to try. He's an asset, and it wasn't that long ago. It was a year ago today that we were talking about this guy's a beast. Mm-hmm. Literally. A year ago today.
Yeah, a year ago he had the ball opening day.
I'm sure we had Gerry's percentages. Is this guy going to be in, Cy Young voting? Like that type of stuff. I guarantee you we had that. So
absolutely.
Maybe they're going to try and find something there for him, either to have him back in the mix or to build him up as an asset to move to get something back.
I think you can marry the two. I think you come out and say, stop asking us. He's starting the year on the IL. He's going to build up, and and then after when he's capable of pitching, he will not be with the Blue Jays. He will start in the minors, and he's going to have to chew on that. Like, he can't be pissy about that. He can't be arrogant and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm a major leaguer, I want to come up. None of that can happen anymore. He's lost that right based on the way he's played and what's happened here in the spring. So I do think it's in the best interest of the Jays to approach it that way, but also support the guy, and say we're going to give him every possible opportunity. We're going to support him. We have our staff down there. Pete Walker's talking to him daily. Whatever he needs, we are going to supply him, but we will not supply him a guaranteed spot on the Blue Jays. That's not going to happen. He has to earn that. But when he does, and if he does, he'll be back up here. There's ways you can basically quiet it, like, hey, the games are going to start here, and he's not a part of it, which is the biggest distraction. But also understand, like, you don't want to completely bury the guy. He's still a product of your organization. You've invested a lot in him, and you've seen him at his peak. And at his peak, guy was electric. Guy's going to help you win a lot of ball games. So you want to believe that's still there, but he's the one that's got to find it. Schneider's not going to. Walker's not going to. Atkins isn't going to. It's on him to do that. All right, Gerry's percentage is coming up. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
You're going to want to hear this.
Gerry's percentages.
I don't love being commissioner as much as I used to. I actually love it even more.
That's the voice of a Hall of Famer.
Are you kidding? Have you been out drinking?
You're all pigeons. Filthy, filthy pigeons.
It's Gerry. Gerry.
All right, Gerry's percentages. We haven't done this in a while. We haven't heard from Gerry, and I'm sure he's very excited. We're getting closer and closer to the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think he's a big fan of the spring, right? Gerry, I sense Gerry's a spring guy.
It's his time of year.
It generally is, right? He's getting closer and closer to handing out the cup, and Philip Pritchard better not, hang him out to dry. So all that kind of stuff is right around the corner. And of course, Gerry's percentages brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From tip-offs to tie bites and puck drops to pizza, BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice-cold beer is always dialed in for game time. Hustle into your local BP tonight. You guys ready to hear from Gerry?
Let's go.
Yeah.
Jerry was doing karaoke down in Florida with Pierre LeBrun and Darren Dreger, and my pager went off. It was Bobby Manns. He wants to do lunch. Probably needs a shoulder to cry on because his meal ticket Ohtani is a sneaky little devil. And Gerry knows exactly how to handle sneaky little devils. I dealt with Shane Pinto swiftly.
That is accurate. That was swift. Very swift. Mm-hmm. How about that? Bobby Manns karaoke with Pierre down in Florida. What a wild scene for Gerry. All right.
Crazy stuff.
We knew he'd be in a good mood, right? We knew he'd be ready to go. All right, let's get to the takes here.
Won't matter if the Blue Jays win or lose this season because Atkins and Shapiro are not going anywhere. They're locks to run the show in 2025.
That's an interesting one.
I think that's 30%, man. If it's a disaster of a season, there will be, let's not forget, there's been talk about Bo and Vladdy and spring training hype up. It was miserable at the end of last season, and people were livid. The way that went down, the optics of it, Vladdy getting picked off at second, Barrios coming out of the game, people were pissed. So if it's a disaster to start and it runs through the whole year, all bets are off. I'm saying 30% they're back. Guaranteed. This percentage, though, is guaranteed back for 2025, right?
Both of them, Shapiro and Atkins.
I'm going to go 30%, and I think if you go any higher than that, you should be booted off this segment.
I'm 12%. There's no guarantee on anything, especially with a team. What did they win? 89. They'd won 91 and 92 previous years, I do believe. Mm-hmm. It's a
lot of winning, man. That is a lot of winning. It could be a lot worse.
You're right, but expectations, what is it? Is the bar low? We're talking about 84.5, 85. If they have a gas can season, I think all bets are off. I really do. And now if they have a surprising season and everything's great and, the bats come alive and the pitching holds up, then, there are a 90-plus win team. But I nothing is guaranteed. I'm 12% because especially both of them.
Yeah.
Both.
Shapiro's not going anywhere. I don't think Mark Shapiro's going anywhere. Obviously, anything is subject to change. You cannot guarantee anything like you guys just said. I do think it's interesting here, his timeline, because the heavy lifting, like the big jobs, are done. When he got here, he obviously wanted to bring in his own people. He wanted to attack the facilities down in Dunedin. They did that. He wanted to change the Rogers Center. He did that. There were reports that they wanted to build a new stadium somewhere else in the city. COVID, I think, brought that to an end, and now these renovations have completely ended that dream. That's not going to happen, at least for another 15, 20 years. So what is next for Shapiro? What does he have to do next? And guys like that jump around. He may have a different job somewhere else that he's intrigued by, but I think Shapiro is a lock to come back next year, assuming he wants to. Atkins is the different story. Ross took a lot of heat last year, a lot of heat down the stretch. His press conferences were a disaster at times, really did not land well with the audience or with the fan base. And then you have the Ohtani scenario that falls flat, and then it never got up off the mat. But he is Shapiro's guy. And I'm going to go higher than 30%. You can boot me off the segment if you want. I'll say 65%.
You just said 35 because
65%. 65%.
65.
65. Shapiro and Atkins are still running the show this time next year.
But that doesn't equate with what you just said about the press conferences, the disasters not landing, and then you throw 65%
That's external
out there?
heat. Wow. You know how organizations are different, man. Fans can yell and scream all they want.
Oh, so you think executives above those guys are not understanding that, and they don't feel that or understand it, and they don't provide that heat as well?
I'll give you another example in this
It's
market.
an outlandish percentage.
Yeah. What about the Leafs? Every year it's the same thing. Leafs got to fire everyone. Everyone's out. They don't do a thing. The Leafs are the better example. They don't win anything. And it's just, bring these guys back, bring that guy back. I'm not picking on the Leafs. I'm just saying, the Leafs have a similar operation and a similar mantra. The point is they crave stability. They believe stability is a good thing, and I think in large part it generally is. I think the same thing applies with a baseball team.
Well, and keep in mind, Brian, you did point out, they've had a good run here. It's not like they've been bottom feeders. Been playoff teams, they've been around it, they've got good young players. If they do have an off season this year, maybe they do get afforded a little bit longer leash than we're trying to. Maybe I should change my number, but I'm still believing that nothing is guaranteed here.
Nothing's guaranteed. I hear you.
So, and as much as we do like them, Atkins and Shapiro, they come on with us. They're friends of the show, but ultimately this is about body of work, right? And they have had some success, but I think there is a level of okay, let's see if we turn the corner here. Hey, Vladdy was the youngest guy on the team and all.
That's got to come to an end. No one wants to hear the youngest guy on the team
exactly.
anymore.
Eventually, it's let's turn a corner here and see what these guys are.
Yeah. Maybe
this is the year that really tells everything.
Yep. And the same thing with the Leafs. The Leafs, again, much like the Jays, they go to the playoffs every year. They win. They're a very stable, well-run, well-oiled machine. We had Kurkjian on last hour. It's the Jays are really well perceived throughout baseball the way they operate. Very professional, a lot of resources. It's just about, okay, now you're winning, you're a playoff team, you got to go that next level, which is probably the toughest step to take. And so far it hasn't been there. All right, what else do we have?
Nice to see Billy Nye, the wrist shot guy, lighting it up this season. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Because he'll hit 100 points again next season.
Well, he hasn't quite hit 100 yet, but he's well on his way. He hit his 40th goal last night.
Gerry being positive.
Someone told me today, I got to look this up, that statistically his season right now is the best season that Sundin ever had as a Leaf.
Yeah, I saw that today,
Matt's
too.
Best statistical season was 94 points or whatever, and that's currently where Nylander is. That's pretty incredible. But yeah, Gerry's got him hitting 100 next year. 100 points back-to-back for Willie.
I can't award just 100-point seasons, man. It's just, who knows with injuries. It's so difficult to just say somebody's going to get 100 points. I'm going to give it 40% because I think the player is so talented that he's going to creep around with it as healthy. But I can't put it all together and just gift any player in the league 100 points. I got to go 40%. And I believe that that's being generous. It's not about the player or the talent or the ability to score points. It's just, I don't know about health. I don't know what happens next year. I don't know who's on the team. I just can't gift someone 100 points. But I know somebody who might, and he's right there and doesn't like hot dogs.
Well, hold on. Let me jump in first.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go a little bit higher based on what you just said, who you're playing with. There's no guarantee. Mitch Marner needs a deal. Like if the Leafs don't go deep into the playoffs, there might be change here. Like he might get elevated roles, more situations where, you expect him. He might be the 1A guy beside Austin Matthews. And again, that's might, coulda, woulda, shoulda, all of that type of stuff. So I'm going to go just over 51%, because I think he's given himself to the next step now. Mm-hmm. So he scored 40 goals and counting 2 years in a row. So he's getting those looks, he's getting the minutes, getting all of that. He might be asked for more next season based on what the makeup of the team is. So that's kind of where I'm giving a little extra.
Well, I think that's likely. I mean, they've committed to him, right? They've committed to Matthews. They've committed to Nylander. Yeah. Marner's still got another year on his deal, so you presume he will be back next year, and maybe he's got an extension by the time they start next year. But I think if you look at the season, Matthews has been the number one guy. Willie's been number two. Like, you can have a discussion on Willie versus Mitch, who you would take, who you think is the better player. This year, Nylander has been definitively better. Like, Nylander has been a rock star. He has truly been one of the 12, 15 best players in the game. He's been unbelievable. And he's every night, even on off nights, he's got special shifts, or he pots a goal or picks up a secondary assist. So, I don't know if it's going to happen next year. I believe it will happen again at some point in his prime here. I think over the next 4 or 5 years, if you ask me, will he hit 100? I'd say 95%. Yes.
Right.
But I'll say 39%. I'll go a percentage lower than for next year.
Attaboy, you're learning the game.
Well, because he might have 95 points, which is still a remarkable year.
No kidding. No kidding.
A lot of things broke his way this year. He's been great. He's earned them. He's been outstanding. And I think that's going to continue. I think he has unlocked something here the last couple of years where this is who he is now. He's an upper echelon elite powerhouse, but he's not McDavid. He's not.
I was just going to say, the only guy that gets gifted a 100-point season is Jesus.
Is McDavid. Yeah, exactly. and Draisaitl's not far behind him in terms of hitting 100 points. Like, he does that pretty consistently every year. Kucherov, if he's healthy. Matthews barely gets to 100. Matthews has not been a lock for 100 points every single
year. And he's the best goal scorer in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, what else do we have?
Tiger Woods making the cut at the Masters is a bigger lock than Scotty Scheffler finishing top 5. Watch out for the ass grab, Tiger, because your game's in shambles.
How would Gerry know?
Calling out
the GOAT. How would he know the game that Tiger currently has?
Dude,
come on.
Maybe
Gerry.
He's down in Jupiter. Gerry's got some dough. He might have a spot at Jupiter.
He could. He could be. Where does he play? He plays at it's not Seminole.
No, he plays at Jupiter Hills.
Okay. Well, maybe Gerry's in there too. I don't know. Maybe Gerry's knocking Tiger off the tee sheet. Maybe Gerry's sneaking in on a Tiger. Imagine Tiger puts his name onto a tee sheet and like Gerry or someone else slides in as like the fourth guy on a threesome.
Dude, those guys, like professional athletes, get special treatment, but the way golfers are treated at venues, it is outrageous. Like, the red carpet just gets tossed out everywhere. I was on the first tee at TPC Sawgrass Stadium course. On the first tee, first group off, Vijay Singh, who lived there for years, he never left, from 8 in the morning till 7 at night, hitting balls. He pulled up in a golf cart, and the starter grabs his clipboard. He goes, "Oh, Mr. Singh, I think there's a break about 10 minutes after these guys, and maybe you could head out there." He said, "Move that pylon. I'm going by you, and I'm teeing off right now." And I just looked. I was like, "Jesus, Murphy!"
I love that.
Yeah, we call it the move the cone story. He goes, "With about 10 minutes, we can probably slide you out there." He just pointed at the pylon. He said, "Move that cone." And the guy moved the cone. He drove his cart ahead of us and went on the fairway and hit a shot.
Yeah.
They're gods.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's – and Tiger, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, golf courses, like, you got to put your name onto the sheet or into a lottery.
Not those cats.
Not Tiger. No, of course not. Like, could you imagine the amount of guys who'd be like, "Oh, I can slide in. Tiger's group has an opening at 8:10 tomorrow." Mm-hmm. How mortified Tiger would be if there was actually someone trying to do that. Anyway, the take is Tiger making the cut, more of a lock than Scheffler top 5. He never misses the cut. He never misses the cut. Yeah, he's never missed the cut once in his career.
That's a 0%. This is a 0% more of a lock. You have no idea what Tiger Woods is going to do right now. Who the hell knows what's going to happen after the Genesis? I don't know if that was his back. Remember, he had the shank on the 18th hole, and he was doing an interview, and he started doing plyometrics to stretch out his back to show everyone that it was all jacked up. But the other thing is, the second round where he withdrew, it was just a bizarre scenario for him out at the Genesis, because he was the host of the tournament, and a bunch of guys had the flu, God knows from what, but he just left sight. He usually sticks around and hands out the trophy on Sunday.
Yeah, that was weird.
It was
some weird stuff going on.
It was, and it was like, is his game in shambles, or did he sniff out an 83 where he's like, I got to get off this property right now and get back to a range and see a coach? Who knows? There's just no guarantees with that guy. Health, performance, it's 0% chance that he's a lock for lock for making the cut.
Yeah, I'm low on this too. I feel like we get more ass grabs than anything from this guy. Or
if you go more than zero, Hayes, you're done.
Yeah, but the take
and I'm kicking you off the show.
It's not just make the cut. It's compared to Scheffler top 5. Like, top 5 is not a guarantee. I know Scheffler's the number 1 player in the world. He's rocking right now. It's the Masters. It's a major. He's not guaranteed top 5.
Dude,
he's not guaranteed.
Scotty Scheffler, I think, and this is bizarre to say, that year Tiger Woods went out to Pebble Beach and he won the U.S. Open. He showed up at St. Andrews, and it was like, just give the guy the trophy. Mm-hmm. I honestly feel that way about Scheffler at the Masters right now.
I'm not quite there, man. Not his putting, dude. His putting is just nowhere close to that.
Dude, I'll bet you 500 right now Scotty Scheffler puts a green jacket on Sunday.
Just straight up, I get the field, you get Scotty?
Take him. I'll take Scotty Scheffler.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
Man,
Pinky
man.
swear. Lock it in. The whole 9. The whole 9, dude.
Okay.
The whole 9. And I love Scheffler. Don't get me wrong. I love Scheffler. And the guy's, he's a rock star. I mean, look at the way he's playing. He is definitively the best player in the world. Like, absolutely, unquestionably the best player and the favorite. On FanDuel, the guy's like plus 450 to win the Masters.
I know.
You know, short those odds.
Dude, I was watching. Do you think I just dreamt up that commentary?
No, I understand. I
watched the Golf Channel. They're talking about tee to green. It's the best ever. It's the best
it's not
ever.
the best ever. Tiger in 2000 was better, I think.
Okay, pull up his stats from tee to green and then talk to me. Let's have a conversation.
I will. You look at you, all analytics and going deep on, tee to green and shots above expected, all that good stuff. But Tiger does not miss the cut. He does not miss the cut. I'm going to say 80%, man. If he shows up and his body is intact, and I think it will be, he will make the cut.
It's an outrageous claim.
He's making the cut. It's Sandy
claim.
Lyle out there, Fred Couples, Jose
Sandy
Murillo
Lyle and
Fable.
his suspenders and his
Those are the
waders.
guys that miss the cut. And a couple amateurs. Tiger doesn't miss the cut.
It's waders.
Okay. Dude, Sandy Lyle was wearing fishing waders and suspenders at Augusta National and a Bill Murray plaid shirt.
Yeah.
And I was looking at him like, you're at Augusta National right now.
I think he's done. I think Sandy
He is. He packed it in, and I just said, take the waders and the suspenders and take a hike.
Yeah. Hey, listen,
Sandy
man. Scheffler's dialed. Like, he is dialed. There's no question about that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Tiger, I mean, him being a lock, but you're right. I don't know if Scheffler's, like, guaranteed. Like,
top 5 is tough at a major.
I don't know. I'm going to be 18%.
All right.
I don't.
You're going against Tiger. I hear you. It's tough with Tiger.
This guy, every time you guys talk about it, and J-Mac gets so rattled. That's his guy.
Yep.
And it's so frustrating because you thinking, okay, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one. This guy turns the corner and it's ass grab or limp and he's done. That's it.
I know. It's troubling, man. I had a scenario like that. I'm trying to improve my swing and trying to become more athletic, and I was, my neighbor's golf pro, this guy Brandon, great guy. He's looking at me, he's watching me, and he's like, you got to move your pelvis and your glutes, and I'm like, this is what Tiger's talking about. I'm Tiger. I got to get my glutes shooting. I got to get the pelvis. I got to get the body moving, and so I'm trying to do what Scotty Scheffler does, because Scheffler moves, man. Scotty moves, right? He knows what's up. All right, we got Gerry's After Dark. We got a bunch more Gerry's we'll get to. Dregs is coming up. Steve Phillips coming up. Gerry's Percentages brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From tip-offs to tie bites and puck drops to pizza, BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice-cold beer is always dialed in for game time. Hustle into your local BP tonight. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
Just like to read a little something that came through my timeline. And I will nerd out on some stats for golf. Do you know why, Brian?
Why?
Because no one's attempting to cross-check you in the head. Mm-hmm. There's no physical battling contact involved.
There is nerves, though. There is pressure. Nerves and pressure. You're telling me there's no intangibles in golf?
Can I get to my stat? Sure,
go ahead.
Most strokes gained total per round in majors since beginning of 2020. Minimum 30 rounds played in a span. Number 1, Billy Zaltz.
Billy
Zaltz at 2.5.
Like Bill at the Masters.
No, you don't, bro.
I do. The way he rolls the rock, he's rolling the rock right now.
No, he's not.
Continue.
But number 2 is Scotty Scheffler, and the guys behind him, Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, Xander Schauffele. Scotty Scheffler is dialed in right now. I don't even care what happens in Houston. That is called a tune-up.
He'll probably win that, though. There's a very good chance he wins.
I don't want him to win because it's just difficult to win and then get fired up again for the Masters. Just go out there and shoot 75. 2 warm-up 18s and go to Augusta.
Yeah, sure, man. Like, that's the Koepka mentality, right? Like, remember when he just said, if it's not a major, I just don't care?
Yeah.
Basically, he's like, I show up because I have to, but I really don't care that much. Yeah, Scheffler's dialed in. He is dialed in. Like, there is no disputing that. And if you can bottle that up and you add some putting, that guy's a machine. He's going to win the Masters. If he putts, he's going to win. Like, I don't dispute that. If he can putt, he will win, but he doesn't always putt, although he did change the Spider, right? The tour, the new TaylorMade Spider Tour putters that are just so butter.
He drives in 10K and he putts with the Spider.
Yes, he does. He looks good, man. He looks good. Like, I'm all in. I'm going to try to channel my inner Scotty. I got the Golf Forever. It's like a training system, training apparatus. It's unreal. Works on your body. He's the face of that.
You bought that thing?
Yeah, I picked that up. I'll tell you more. Don't you worry about that. It's got. I'm dialing in my game. I'm coming for you, man. I'm chasing speed, and I'm chasing you. That's what I intend on doing this year. All right, hour 3 coming up. Darren Dreger will join us. Steve Phillips coming up. Our best bets and Vezina picks. Noodles, you ready for this?
I'm ready for it.
Oh, you and I are 5-pack of Vezinas. That's coming up in the final hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.